In this lesson, we're going to take a look at an endpoint log to see what it looks like when malware gets infected on your system. So in this case, I've got about 10 to 15 lines from an endpoint system that is going to show us what happens inside of that system based on the actions of a user and based on the actions of the system. So here you can see the time column is first, and then we'll see the event ID, and then the description, the user, the action taken, and some details telling you about what was happening. So on the exam, they may not show you the detail column because that really does give it away. But again, a lot of the things under the description or the action taken column will be able to give you enough information to know what is happening here, and that is that this system is being infected with malware. Now, as we go through and look at this, we're going to start with line 2101, and you see that the web browser has been started. It was opened by the user named Taylor, and the user initiated that web browser. The user then went and browsed around for a minute, and eventually they found a file that they wanted to download. So they downloaded that and initiated the download. The download started, and this was called setup.exe, and then setup.exe was finished downloading, and they executed that file. When they did that, the antivirus actually created an alert, and that was generated by your system, and it said that this was flagged as suspicious. Next, we see that the user overrode that, and they ignored the alert and said, nah, I want to install that software anyway. So the user went ahead and executed the file, setup.exe, and that started launching a stage 1 dropper. Now, setup.exe was a stage 1 dropper, which means it's a piece of malware, but it's not the malware that's actually going to do really bad things to your system yet. Instead, it's just going to be used to go download a larger program that contains all the malicious code it needs to run the stage 2. So next we see in line 2502, there is an outbound connection detected by the system, and there was a connection established to a remote server of 92.168.47.81, and that is where our stage 2 dropper is going to be located, so we're going to download that file. That begins in line 2601, where the file is downloaded, and then the file completes in 2602. You can see here that this was downloaded by setup.exe, and the file is called update.bin, which is a binary file, and that was successfully downloaded. At that point, that file is going to actually deactivate our antivirus, so our antivirus can't protect us anymore. And then in line 2801, the stage 2 dropper, which was update.bin, is executed, and this begins our payload deployment. Next, we're going to see a new process is created in the system, and that new process was detected, and we've realized that that is a malicious process called malproc.exe. At this point, we see there's an unauthorized system modification occurring, and that is an unauthorized change, and so the system registry was actually being modified by that malicious process called malproc.exe. Next, we see some anomalies inside of our networked activity, and we actually get an alert for that because of unusual outbound traffic, which in this case is most likely malproc.exe going and sending data back to the attacker so they can then have a data exfiltration from your system. And finally, we see that our security system is going to go ahead and create an alert for us that sends out a breach alert saying that we have a suspected data breach happening, and this was because of an indicator of compromise that was detected, and so we want our analysts to go in and analyze what's going on, see what data was taken, and how we can recover from this incident. That's the idea of how you can read these endpoint detection logs to figure out what is going on. As I said, on the exam, you're probably not going to see a lot of endpoint detection logs because endpoint detection logs tend to have a lot of good detail in here. They'll tell you exactly what is going on, and so it becomes really easy to understand that this was a malicious process that was happening because of the stage 1 and stage 2 dropper. That being said, if you do get one of these on the exam, be thankful because it's going to be a pretty easy question for you to answer.